Hello, how are you? I've been feeling quite down this week because of the news, but something I want to declare is thank goodness for books. Can you imagine how much harder it would be just being stuck in these circumstances, in this reality, in this present moment, in this body? I have found so much respite this week in imagining myself into other times and places and into the lives of other people. And I don't need to explain this to you. You're a reader, you understand. But as well as temporarily escaping from all of this, it allows me to differently engage with the world. So I'm grateful for that. And while there's a lot to be worried about the future, something to look forward to in the immediate future is the announcement of the winner of this year's Booker Prize. It's happening on the evening of November 12th, so very soon. And I just received my invitation to the ceremony in the mail recently, which I feel so lucky about, and I'm really excited about attending. So I've been revisiting all of the books on the shortlist and rereading sections of them, as well as reading in its entirety Anne Michael's novel Held, which I had a very negative reaction to when I first read it. So I want to discuss more of my thoughts and feelings about these books, as well as ranking them and what I'm thinking and hoping and expecting to win this year's prize. So I'm going to go through and discuss all of them, but I'd love to know what if you've read any of the books from the shortlist, what you think about any of them, and what book you are hoping will win this year's prize. Because, I mean, really, it doesn't really matter who wins, I mean, to me, because really all the pleasure of reading along with book prize lists like this is being able to discuss it with other readers and see other readers' points of view and hearing about your thoughts and feelings about all of them. So I'm going to go through, and so in sixth place for this, it still would be Anne Michael's novel Held. So I did go back and I reread this book in its entirety, and yes, and I did appreciate it more. There are some lines in this which are so beautiful, and some imagery in this is so beautiful because of the poetic nature of Anne Michael's writing. And no, this isn't just a novel in poetry like disguising itself as a novel. There are characters and there's a story here, and so I picked up on some more pieces of this and the threads of the fragments of these many different characters' lives, and how their connections with each other, both visible and invisible, as we follow them over a long period of time and see just bits and pieces of each other's lives. But why I still feel like critical of this book is because I feel like Anne Michael's too often is sort of gesturing at the larger story that is there, rather than fully embracing the complexity of it and dealing with that complexity through the narrative, that more often there will just be these little indicators of these characters' lives, rather than sort of embracing the fullness of them. And that's, I fully recognize that's more just like a personal taste thing. When I read a novel, I want to feel like the fullness of the story, and feel like that both the author and myself can fully understand and imagine these characters' lives beyond the boundaries of what can be, described in just a number of sentences. And so, yeah, it just felt like too often it was like making gestures like that. And there were some lines in this that I found incredibly poignant. So there was a line where she writes, "He would understand later that there is a moment when your life must become your own. You must claim it from all the other stories you've been given, that have been handed down or thrust upon you, and that you've been left holding while someone else claimed theirs. He already knew that the life unchosen, left behind because of cowardice or shame, does not wither, but instead, without exception, grows rampant. choking the path ahead. I mean, that is gorgeous. I mean, that like speaks so much more about life and sort of grasping our own sense of identity and claiming our own future. And so yeah, there are some really striking lines like that. But then there are other lines in this book which are just far too vague and abstract and feel like they're grasping for meaning beyond what Anne Michaels is actually creating in this story. And so that is just my feeling about this book. I know some other readers have absolutely loved this novel, but yeah, for me, it's still kind of the weakest book on the list. Now in fifth place, I would give to Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, which I really enjoyed reading this novel, and I read it as part of my online book club, and we had a lot of great discussions about this book. And I felt really like connected to Sadie, even though I'm very critical of her, of this character that stealthily enters this commune, not just to spy upon it, but to manipulate the people within this commune and to change the circumstances and outcome of what's happening because of the mission that she's been given. And so yeah, it's really pleasurable following sort of the cracks in her character and how she's really not as good at spying as she intended. But a lot of the pieces of this book just didn't fully hold together for me, like in the end, when I've been reflecting about it and then revisiting some parts of it and thinking like oh well, it's really like interesting, a lot of the points that she's making, and the story, how it builds, it just felt slightly too uneven. And something I think that is a real indicator of that and is when I was listening to an interview with Rachel Kushner about her inspiration about this book, and it's really fascinating, a lot of the things that she says, and she's a really engaging speaker and incredibly intelligent and thoughtful. But her initial inspirations for this book came from two strands. One was the meeting of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, way back thousands and thousands of years ago. But then also more recently of officers and spies being sent in by government bodies to communes and activist groups, like in this novel, to infiltrate them and pretend to be someone that they're not. And so she melded these two things in this story, and it just makes it feel a bit uneven and unwieldy. And yeah, the overall message of it, I'm not really like sure what that message is, and although there's lots of interesting things to think about and ponder, and I did find it really moving how Sadie becomes so much more engaged with this kind of like mentor for the commune, and reading his emails and thinking about all of his thoughts about the past and how we've come to this moment in the present, although she's still a very unsympathetic character because of the things that she does and the monstrous things that she does, and not taking really responsibility for all of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this novel, more so than Rachel Kushner's previous book, The Mars Room, that I read, but and it sort of worked better for me, but still not in its entirety. The Safekeep, which again I massively enjoyed, and I think is a really skillful and fascinating book, and such a meaningful way of like reckoning with the past and thinking about the long-term consequences and aftermath of war, and the repercussions of what happened in that war, and both emotionally and with property that's left behind. And this novel, which is in three distinct parts, and each of those parts are compelling in their own way, though the third part was really like the strongest for me, though I really appreciated the build-up of the relationship between the two central characters in this book, and following their lives, and how sexy and exciting so much of this book is. There's a lot of like thrilling elements and twists and turns to it to make it a really good and fascinating read. And it's another book that I read with my online book club. And yeah, and we had lots of great discussions of this book and reading it together, as we were following all of the turns in the plot was really pleasurable. And so yeah, I think this is a great book and a really exciting debut. Now, in third place, I would say there is Orbital by Samantha Harvey, and I am almost might sound like I'm contradicting myself in praising and loving this very short novel so much when after the things that I've said about Held by Anne Michaels, because again here we have multiple characters but just get small pieces about their lives rather than sort of representing or seeing or being able to understand their lives in their fullness, because we follow these characters as they are in a space capsule that's traveling around our world and observing the Earth below them. And but I think why this novel works so much better for me is because I got a real good sense in this very small environment how these characters have become so tight knit and have a familiarity with each other, having been locked in this circumstance for a long period of time. And so we get little bits about the friendships and connections between these different astronauts and as they are working and going about their daily tasks, and but also have their own private issues that they're dealing with and wrestling with, and some which they necessarily have to keep to themselves and can't share either with each other or with the people down below on Earth. And I just found I really understood these characters in a way that I fully didn't understand the characters in Held. And I'm sure if I went back and kept revisiting Held, I would pick up more and more pieces of it. So, it is a book that's really worth revisiting. But I think this novel is too, because as I was going back and rereading sections of it, I was picking up on more things about these characters' lives and their relationships to each other, but also as a way of considering the world and all of the issues that we're dealing with in the world from a very different point of view, because it is literally outside of this earth and looking at it in a different way. And we're reminded of how the borders, the artificial borders that are drawn between nations and around individuals to limit them, they really don't matter in this circumstance, in this space station where all of these borders have kind of dissolved, because it's a circumstance in a place which is very different from normal everyday reality. And I also just found the writing of this book so beautiful, and it is also poetically charged, but in a way which felt more meaningful and immediate than in reading Anne Michaels' novel. So yeah, that's why I think this novel is for me much preferable to Anne Michaels' book. Now, to decide the actual winner, honestly, I can't pick between these two books, because I think they're both really excellent novels in very different ways. And so with Percival Everett's James, I mean, it's just a masterclass in writing, and such a brilliant conceit for a novel to relate the events of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn from the character of Jim's perspective, and not just in following the story, and which is so exciting and adventurous and funny and moving, but also in the connection that Jim forms with Huck over time, and how that connection changes and evolves, but also making allowances for how Jim understands that Huck has been born and raised in certain circumstances, and so doesn't fully understand the world and hasn't can't fully see the world outside of what he has been born into, but how he still sympathizes with and connects with Huck in this way. I mean, I think that's such a timely and important message, but also how Everett reminds us in this novel that that we shouldn't fall back on our own assumptions of what we are told about people and about circumstances, that we should view it from a different lens, and by looking at circumstances from a different perspective, we can really better understand why why what's occurring is occurring, and yeah, again, I think that's another very timely and important message, and so yeah, I think this is an incredible novel, a really beautiful and masterfully written story, but also with Charlotte Wood's Stoneyard Devotional, the way this follows a character who is really completely retreated from the world and from engaging with the world, which I'm sure all of us can relate to in different ways, that we just want to like escape from it all like totally, and just like live as much on our own and as independently as possible. And I've definitely felt that at different times, but the way that she deals still has to deal with the present moment and with the circumstances that she finds herself in, and with the various different problems that are occurring both at a local level and more globally, and so finding a way to interact with the world in this way and continue interacting with it, but also with dealing with the past and how our memories have shaped and molded our understanding of the past, and also the attendant feelings of guilt we have about the past, and how that is connected to those things, and through the different examples of people that she meets, and the history that she's had with some of these other characters, like we understand the full like complexity of this, and also I just think that the writing in this is so powerful and striking, and really gets to the heart of many different issues that are being explored in this book in such a complex way. And so yeah, I think this is an incredible novel, and so yeah, I honestly can't pick between these two books, and would be absolutely thrilled if either of these books won, or both of them. That won't happen again. The prize isn't going to allow that to happen again, of the award being given to two books. Yeah, I think, and I think it should only be given to one. But personally, like if I was a judge for this prize, I wouldn't be able to choose between these two books, but yeah, again, it could be you never know which way the judges are going to go, and it could be any of these other novels as well. And I am like and I'm fully emotionally prepared. Held might win this year's prize. Sometimes the judges just completely disagree with me, and but we will see on the evening of November 12th which of these books are going to win. And so I would love to hear what you think about any of these books, or if you're still interested in reading any of them now, or what book and author do you think is going to win this year's Booker Prize? Please let me know about that in the comments below. But if you just want to have a chat about how you've been doing this week as well, we're all going through a lot, then yeah, I'd be glad to chat with you there. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.